Good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. My name is Keaton Shaw. A bright Monday morning, beautiful actually. Just a bit of rain to start off your day. Sometimes that is what's needed. But joining me this morning, not alongside me, but rather via Zoom, still very fortunate that he is with us, is my co-host and colleague, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. And yeah, it's a beautiful Monday morning, and it's an interesting Monday morning because once again, crime seems to be at the forefront of, well, the national discussion. Brazen's attack over the weekend, and also we have an international incident to speak about later.
Certainly an international incident. In fact, that discussion we can get into now. You're right, crime certainly has been the subject of the weekend, especially, I think most notably that killing at a very popular nightclub right here in Woodbrook. That seriously it's more shocking than anything else, given the thoughts, or at least the thought of the influence of the specific area of the nightclub. You know, people would often think that they're safe just sitting anywhere around that area. That was not the case this weekend. But before we get into that, the crew of the Harbour Master, the ship of which was involved in that incident last week with the Grenada champion, Anderson Peters, javelin champion, well, the captain of that ship, Noel Cooper, has spoken out. Just bear in mind that he was one of the individuals who was detained by police, and that himself, as well as the 5 other members, are due to actually appear before the court in Grenada this morning. Sean, Mr. Cooper actually stated that he's trying to set the record straight, that neither himself nor his crew were the aggressors. They were actually trying to subdue a situation. It was in fact Mr. Anderson Peters who was the aggressor, and that he was on board with a group of friends. They had just finished sailing one particular party and they were about to start another when they were asking Mr. Peters to leave. Now, apparently Mr. Peters refused to leave and started pacing up and down the ramp. He then became aggressive, started using obscene language, hurling it towards the crew as well as the captain, and he actually threw the first punch. Now, this is Mr. Cooper's side of the story. And it's very interesting because, you know, last week we showed a video. Those videos don't always show everything. We did not actually understand the side of those involved, at least from the Trini side. And now we're hearing from the captain, who is stating that, listen, I had no wrongdoing, my crew had no wrongdoing. Essentially, they are the victims.
Well, unfortunately, 2 wrongs don't make a right at the end of the day. And I just have to, now, there might be details that we don't know exactly. Maybe it was unavoidable and Mr. Peters pushed a physical confrontation. However, it doesn't, even if he takes a swing, Keaton, in this sort of business, in a service industry, you don't know, and this is why you don't treat VIPs as VIPs and normal people as normal people, and you could get away with treating normal people less than VIPs. You're supposed to treat everybody as someone important, as an important customer to you. You're supposed to have the same level of respect, generally speaking, for all your customers. And I get it, he might have taken a swing, but I feel as though it's not so much, well, he started to swing so we could swing back. That's fine for a rum shop. Are you the bouncer of a rum shop? Are you the bouncer of a hole in the wall? This is I mean, you're not even nationals here. The level of trouble that you could put yourself in by not being careful, first of all. And also there's the fact that, look, not only do you risk your own freedom depending on the situation, but the long-term implications for your employer, for your country, diplomatic relations. I don't know if they were briefed. I don't know if they were told or given the right amount of briefing with regards to, well, listen, this is not Trinidad. And we will be under a microscope because we are outsiders. And it's something that we see in everyday life. When the poor boy wandered off and ended up being found dead, who did they look to blame? The lady who was the outsider, and I've seen this before, it's easy to blame the outsiders in the situation. All the more reason to, as the Prime Minister said, dot your T's and cross your I's when you're in this sort of situation. More importantly, you never know who you're dealing with. Might end up being someone who will enhance the microscope on the situation. If it was a random Grenadian, maybe you get away with it. Maybe. But in this situation, that's why you don't take it for granted. But
first of all,
I think customer service in this country is generally poor for a reason.
Well, I agree with you that customer service in the country is very poor, and often we complain about, let's take a look at it from one example, the angle of tourism. Trinidad and Tobago has often looked at the yachting industry as a form of tourism, and certain things like this could actually help that industry. But you're absolutely right. First of all, the Prime Minister did say that, but it's actually, crossing your T's and dotting your I's. Let's get that straight. Minor mistake, we all make it.
I know.
But overall, I agree with you, because the captain of the ship always has final say, always has command. And, what the captain has stated, many Trinidadians have now actually indicated it makes sense. They stand with their fellow Trinis. And I always will stand with my fellow Trinis. What I will not do, though, is I will not condone any sort of wrongdoing. And in this particular instance, I still believe that the Trinidadians, at least their side, were wrong. Because, as you mentioned, it's a service industry. It's not even within the waters of Trinidad and Tobago. Regardless of whether or not it's a world champion or an ordinary Grenadian citizen, it is still a Grenadian at the end of it all. And this is what has transpired. And this has really exploded, at least within TNT and Grenada. I can't speak for outside of that. But it is shocking, because my first thought is, first of all, there are three sides to every story. There's the captain's side, there's going to be Anderson Peters and his crew side, then there's going to be the truth. That's simple. It's now up to the court to determine what the truth is. Secondly, nobody has corroborated the captain's story as yet. None of the crew members have actually spoken about it, and even though he's indicated that the passengers from the other party had disembarked the boat, in the video that we saw, there seemed to be a few people around. Nobody has actually corroborated that. And finally, you do not treat any individual, regardless of how violent that they may be or abusive they may be, in that manner. In a state of professionalism, you subdue the individual. If it takes you 6 crew members to subdue one individual, we've seen that before with police service having to do that with an alleged criminal on the street. We understand that, but it doesn't take 6 people to throw punches at one individual. So yes, I stand with my fellow Trinis, but I do not stand for the wrongdoing. And I agree, if it is that we are to actually raise our standards, raise our game when it comes to the service industry, when it comes to the tourism industry, whatever product that we are trying to sell, customer service, your image is always number one and your best marketing strategy. And quite frankly, they really got it wrong in their handling of the situation.
Well, Keaton, I have to ask, in this situation, just because you get swung on, is this professional? Is this professional? Would we agree with it, or would anybody agree with it if it wasn't for the fact that they were trainees? Trainees agree with trainees. It goes back to what I said, the outsider is going to be blamed because they're not Grenadian. And the microscope is going to be big. And when you are the outsider, to some extent, it's your business. You know, you are there to provide a business. You are not a civilian there minding your own business. So it behooves you to, you know, be on your toes, to not make any errors. And ultimately speaking, if Mr. Peters was acting violent, I think in a lot of situations, think about it. What do? They do not attempt to remove the individual. They do not attempt to manhandle the individual. They do not look to do it themselves. They will just, if possible, bar the individual's way, make sure the individual does not take out their violence on anybody else, any other customer or any other employee, and call the police and let the police handle that. And at the end of the day, bouncers, security officers, yes, there's such a thing as citizen arrest. You're not Grenadian. So I highly doubt TNT National can make a citizen's arrest in Grenada. So again, what do? You call the police. You just make sure that, okay, we're not letting him on the boat. Do we have to wrestle him down and throw him off? That just seems far too excessive. Granted, if Mr. Peters was actively pursuing a fight, I would understand. But generally speaking, think about it. How many times have you seen security officers? They don't wrestle them down to the ground. They don't throw fists. They don't kick. They basically just, if the person comes at them, they push them back. And that's more or less it. And then they wait for the police to deal with it. Let the authorities, who we know have literally the authority to arrest if necessary, to detain, to use violence on a higher level than bouncer or security guard, let them deal with it. And it goes back to, why would you want to risk now the courts having to make a determination on this? At the end of the day, yes, the courts are supposed to be fair, but really and truly, you're not supposed to want to let things reach that far. Why take that risk? So now this whole, the harbour master, I believe, is impounded. I don't know what that means with regards to Mr. Schoon's business. It already affected one of his clients that essentially rented out the harbour master for one trip. The individuals involved, granted, the Grenadian courts are moving forward with this matter seemingly rather quickly, at least when compared to our courts. But when will it be concluded? And for the duration of the trial, will those 6 gentlemen be forced to stay in Grenada? And what will happen to their employment, their lives, etc.?
More than likely, they will be detained and remanded into custody as that trial goes on. You see, you also have to look at it now. The people of Grenada are probably very upset, and the courts could get it wrong. So you have to think about what's taking place in Grenada as well, because the other aspect is you have to also think about, and I think we've basically repeated this point, but to summarize everything that you've said and everything that I've said, you need to do what's best for business. Simple. You need to do what's best for business. Clearly what we saw was not best for business, at least in my opinion. Now, the other side of it, Sean, is you're right. If Mr. Peters was looking for a fight, that's still no excuse, in my opinion, because of the state of professionalism that you want to reach for, the standards that you want to achieve. Overall, taking a look at this situation, I can only hope that we truly learn from it. Because you do not, regardless of if Mr. Peters were the aggressors, you do not react. Now, put it this way, to people who have heard this, the captain of the harbour master, his story, to people who have heard his side, and people who said, I stand with my trees, it makes sense, whatever happened in that video really didn't matter because of what the captain is stating. Understand this. Yeah, sure, you'll be surprised. That is the general reaction. Understand this. If the tables were turned, if there's 6 Grenadians on 1 Trinidadian, would you still be seeing this? Regardless of what happened, the reaction would have been different. And we cannot be hypocrites in a situation like this. We cannot afford to be hypocrites in situations like this. And again, I say, defending yourself is not 6 people on 1 person. That's not defending yourself. Throwing punches at that is not defending yourself. That's, in fact, you can classify that as bullying. Again, as Sean stated, yes, you call the police. Citizens arrest or not, Sean. Regardless of whether or not citizens arrests apply.
Well, they weren't citizens.
In an instance of that, in an instance like that, when you have permission to be actually throwing these cruises in Grenadian waters, you also now have permission to secure your property. And if that is the case, again, I cannot stress this enough, you subdue the individual. If it takes you 6 individuals to hold on to this one individual, and either hold his hands down, tie his hands, or even put him in a room or something like that, okay, that is the better option, rather than this situation have to unfold. Because Trinidad and Tobago is already facing so much. And the mere fact that we have to spend time speaking about this morning in order to try and educate our fellow Trinidadians, I mean, that's appalling.
No, but Keaton, if this was a rum shop, fine. If this was a corner store, fine. But this is a major business. And this goes back now to our own culture, because it's not as though we don't have cruises locally. It's not as though we don't have fetes, etc. locally. So now in this situation, tit for tat. You can't run a business tit for tat. And as you said, okay, if Mr. Peters was getting on aggressive, how is it tit for tat? One person is getting aggressive, so 6 of us are going to respond to him aggressively. That's not how it works. It's the same thing like when we had the video in the savannah with the multiple police officers detaining an individual on the ground, and then one officer was kicking him in the back of the head. Mm-hmm. You use the numbers to make it to make it insurmountable for the aggressor to continue acting aggressive, because what is he going to do to 6 people? But you do not then counter his aggression with aggression. You remain calm. You make sure that you contain the situation. That's professionalism. You don't now swing back with 6 people and then throw him off the boat.
But the only instance in which I will disagree with you, Sean, is, and I understand what you're stating. Don't get me wrong, I understand what you're stating when you made the comment, if this was a rum shop or a corner store, okay, compared to this, I understand the point that you're trying to make. I will, however, disagree with that, because even if it's a rum shop or a corner store, this level of behavior should no longer be tolerated. And I don't want people making an excuse. It's become part of normal society. It's become part of normal culture. Again, you see, if we are to get rid of our old habits in order to try and progress, you need to cut out instances like this. If this was in Trinidad waters, if this was in Grenada waters, it's unfortunate that this happened outside of TNT. At least somehow or the other we would have been able to keep it down here, talk about it down here, rather than this having to be an international incident. It is an international incident. It doesn't involve just Trinidad and Tobago. It involves another independent state. That being said, I don't want nonsense like this happening at the corner store or at the rum shop. I don't want nonsense like this becoming a normal part of everyday conversation. No. I want us to do better. I want us to aim for better. I want us to aim for higher standards. I want us to have some level of decorum, some level of pride within ourselves. Because quite frankly, waving our red, white, and black flags and chanting the national anthem and dancing to the steel pan, it goes beyond that when we speak about pride within ourselves and national pride. All of this is part of it, and cutting out this, getting rid of this attitude and mindset, and actually condoning this level of behavior because it makes sense, no. Trinis, come on, stop disappointing us, stop letting us down. We can do better. We know we can do better. I just don't understand why we choose to do otherwise.
Low expectations, and I believe this will be more widespread than you think, because ultimately speaking, if a similar situation, and I would classify that afternoon in the savannah as a similar situation, if it could happen involving the TTPS, and I'm not saying that means all police officers are so predisposed to do that. But if it could happen there, it could most likely happen through all corners of the society. So it is what it is. Will people strive to be better? And I don't think it's limited to just us. I think you will see that to some extent all around the world, first world, third world, rich, poor. You will see that kind of mentality. And to just strive beyond it, That's the challenge.
Well, sure, we have to take a break now on the program, but I just want to, as we conclude on this and as we end this discussion, I want people to think about it. Regardless of what you're stating, what has happened has happened. It's now up to the Grenada court to determine the outcome of this matter. But he was thrown off the ramp. Had his head hit, the concrete, had it hit the concrete and he succumbed, or he was injured and critically injured in hospital, what's the conversation we'll be having this morning? What's the conversation we'll be having tomorrow? Thank God it didn't go beyond what it did. But that in itself, the mere fact I have to say, thank God it didn't go beyond what it did, seeing and witnessing what transpired, well, thank God he's alive this morning. Folks, we take a break here on the program. All the best to my fellow trainees in court. And at the end of the day, it's now in their hands. That's all I can say. We'll be right back after this.
As I run through the day, there's one thing that I need to give me more smiles and motivation to lead, to make new memories and nutrition to grow. My kiss enriched bread, the best taste that I know. Fill your day with love, we deliver the best for you, all across the nation, to make your moments feel new. Fill your day with love, we bake the best right for you. Inspiration to make those dreams come true.
Baked fresh for you every day and delivered nationwide. Kiss enriched bread.
Fill your day with love.
Here, got phone bill, light bill, and a plane ticket. Where does ticket come from? Who flying here? And look, the roof leaking now.
It sounds like you need a loan from Eastern Credit Union during the Dobita promotion.
But who is you?
A lot of questions you're asking. You can get a loan for mortgage, home equity, debt consolidation, and a Georgie bundle. You know it's a Georgie bundle? Like everything in one. You can also get a chance to win up to $30,000 in prizes.
But there's my robe.
Focus, Daryl. He sounding like you know what he's talking about. Eastern Credit Union have us covered. I don't talk.
And this promotion running until August 30th. You need to go down there right now.
But why you have my toothbrush?
You still asking another question. We will be here when you come back. Go down there, let me fix the roof. And they can probably get a new bed. The bed doesn't making a lot of noise. So go down the road, Eastern Credit Union.
But how you know about my bed?
Don't beat up, Darrell. Hurry up, hurry up. Don't beat up. We will be here.
So, tell me more about this Dobita promotion.
Well,
knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces flagship Mac Bean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Get ready for an explosion of music an August evening at La Jolla Auditorium featuring Leandra, Tricanal, David Baru and Marva, Nathaniel and from Tobago, John Arnold and Lynette Lewis. August 20th, $250. La Jolla Auditorium from 6 p.m. For more info, call 747-4289 or 262-2584.
Well, the conversation surrounding tax exemptions for the motor vehicle purchase by MPs. Now, this is one of their terms of employment. Sorry, not terms of employment, but at least the terms of their contracts. They're actually allowed to purchase motor vehicles. Tax is exempted from it. You're allowed to purchase one vehicle every 2 years, and that vehicle is not allowed to be sold within those 2 years, or you have to pay back half the tax. That conversation took an interesting turn when one local newspaper reported that Member of Parliament David Lee of the opposition United National Congress was actually questioned by police in relation to his purchase of a $2.3 million Mercedes-Benz and whether $1.4 million in tax exemptions derived may have benefited a party financer. Now, MP David Lee has remained silent, and Dr. Kirk Mayhew, who is the Public Relations Officer of the UNC, has also indicated that the party is not going to release any statement at this point. The businessman in question is actually away, and upon his return, he will also be questioned by the authorities. $2.3 million for a vehicle, $1.4 million in tax exemptions. My first question is that, yes, we're looking at this wholeheartedly. We are trying to actually, analyze this story. But even if you take away $1.4 million, a member of parliament has to save up a lot over a couple of months in order to even make a down payment on this vehicle.
So, Keaton, I guess the question is, to what extent is this an ongoing thing on both sides of the aisle? Because ultimately speaking, the Prime Minister has spoken about this issue before, and he more or less said, well, let's cap it. It's a contentious issue. It's a controversial issue. Let's cap this allowance, because if it's $350,000, that's the cap he proposed. That should allow for a pretty nice vehicle for the Member of Parliament. Why does it need to be anything more than that? And to be fair, I think what you just said there more or less alludes to the fact. What would you need to have 1.4 million in tax exemptions? Even that's over, I think, 50% of the vehicle in question, if my quick math is not incorrect.
Yeah.
But even with over 50% of it being exempted, the vehicle itself is still, as you said, very expensive. How does a member of parliament really and truly afford this? Now, the government came under fire within the last year. I think it was late last year with regards to their vehicles. Now it's a member of the opposition. And I think, yes, cap it. Cap it, because at the end of the day, I don't need my MPs to be driving the most expensive cars in the country. Why? It does beg the question, how are they affording these vehicles? Why do they feel the need to have these vehicles? And I'll go one better. Aren't they a little bit acting ahead of themselves? They're revealing too much, because that's a very basic question. I see you with a car that is way in excess of what technically the salary is. Well, how did you get that car? Aren't MPs, ministers, etc., aren't those supposed to be full-time jobs?
Sure.
I get it, you might have investments and assets and stuff, but still.
A couple of things. First of all, the other angle that I was thinking of, it also goes to show just how heavy taxation is in Trinidad with regards to the purchase of vehicles. So that's the other aspect. But that's a conversation for a different day. And you're right. I remember one government minister, when they first entered office back in 2015, to the tune of, it's we time now. And when she stated that, I remember this is something that I'm not going to only associate with her or her party, but with every individual who is elected to Parliament or appointed to position within Parliament, such as a senator. Because it's their time now. It's my time now to purchase a vehicle. I'll wait 2 years and, I'll purchase one for my aunt. And then I'll purchase one for my uncle, for my sister, for my brother. All those things. It's we time now. This is a sad reality, because as much as the Prime Minister then suggested about capping it at $350,000, where did that happen? What happened there? Because he then defended it. He then, after the budget last year, if I'm not mistaken, he then defended it, stating that it is part of their contracts. When you have 5 ministers within his cabinet receiving exemptions up to $7 million. Look at that. I mean, could you imagine if MPs had to pay tax on vehicles? Could you imagine if MPs had to pay tax on their vehicles? Because not only MPs alone that are exempt, there's some government offices as well that are exempt. But then we may not have property tax. Interestingly enough, if we take a look at it, Sean, the Minister of Works and Transport, Rowan Sinanan, back in 2018, he purchased a Mercedes-Benz Maybach. The base price of that vehicle is $175,000 US, and that is before taxes. You have to add on taxes still. So, Sean, MP Lee was questioned. No, if there's any wrongdoing, charge him. I agree. Charge him. But all MPs need to be investigated, all members of Parliament,
yes,
over their vehicle purchases, not just David Lee.
I think it would be very much naive to say, well, it's only David Lee. No. Now, to what extent did the government do it? Well, we don't know. We know that they took advantage of the exemption to buy vehicles. But again, why do they need vehicles of that expense? Or rather, why does the country need to facilitate them affording or having an easier time to afford vehicles of that expense? I think the intention of the exemption, they're more or less making pronunciations on people's lives. And you do hope that they will understand. They might not understand what the price of eggs means to poorer people, what the price of milk, what the price of flour means. And then giving them exemptions for high-cost luxury vehicles just further exacerbates that problem. Why is it now that the people who were supposed to be our leaders to help the common man are being facilitated not just to live well, but to live very well, to live way beyond the means of the average voter? And to what extent is that disconnect now being a disservice to the average voter?
It is a huge disservice. I think members of Parliament forget that they are public servants as well. I think they seem to forget that. It is a huge disservice. You're absolutely right. The price of flour will not affect a member of Parliament. I don't think it will reflect on their grocery bill at the end of the month. The increase in eggs. At the end of the day, a member of Parliament is guaranteed to be having lunch today, having dinner tonight. Just remember that. At the end of the month, they're guaranteed to pay their electricity bill. People watching this show, politicizing it will think, oh, Keaton, how you know that? You don't know what they're going through. You're right, I don't know what they're going through. But at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure, I'm almost certain that they have greater guarantees than the ordinary man on the street. And to add to this entire thing, Sean, you are supposed to declare, I remember the former Attorney General, Faris Arawi, piloting a bill in which you are supposed to declare your assets when questioned about it. And if questioned about it and you cannot explain how you were able to purchase it or where the funds came from, remember, an ordinary individual going to purchase a car has to explain. They have to sign documents explaining where they're getting the funds. In this instance for ministers, yes, we understand Rowan Sinanan was a businessman before he became a minister. Yes, we understand Faris Arawi had a law practice. Certain individuals, Foster Cummings as well, had a business apparently. Well, that's even questionable, considering reports coming from him lately, about him lately. Regardless of such, everybody I don't understand why it is that we cannot have from our members of Parliament, our ministers, opposition MPs, whoever it may be, declaring publicly their assets and where they got the money from to purchase it. Because if the police arrest me tomorrow and try to explain where I got my watch from, and I can't tell them, well, how I got it, they're going to confiscate it from me, aren't they?
I mean, it's why you have copyright. You need to have the proof in place beforehand. You can't make a copyright after the fact when there's a dispute. You can't now say, oh no. This is the history of how I got this item after the police are interested in asking me how I got the item. So to go full circle back to I guess you could say the original point of the article, that MP David Lee potentially used his tax exemption to facilitate somebody else getting an expensive car. Why that's important? Again, what we asked, well, he's supposed to be only using it for his own car. So of course the value of the vehicle now brings up all the questions that you brought up previously. Now that we've reached this point where potentially you're cheating the people, now it goes beyond, well, I have a disconnect to the people. Now it goes to the point where I'm cheating the people in somehow. And then on top of that, I'm not cheating the people to potentially help somebody in need that has a hard time affording certain things that are necessities. I'm cheating people to help someone who's not in need, who's potentially even richer than me, so who has even less of an issue getting their meals a day, paying their bills, etc., than politicians. And I'm helping him facilitate a luxury purchase during these times. And again, you need to be transparent about these things, because it will look bad. And perception in politics is reality. And you only have yourself to blame if you set yourself up to look bad. So why politicians don't try to be more transparent? It's very straightforward. The more transparent I am, the less I have to prove. But generally speaking, that and all is usually where you have to ask the question, what corruption is in the background that they're trying to hide? And I'm not saying that MP Lee or any of the other names that we mentioned here is trying to hide anything, but questions have been asked and answers are not forthcoming. So you didn't just fail being transparent up front. Now we have questions and you're unable to give us any sort of answers after the fact.
Well, Sean, I think as we conclude this topic, now is the most appropriate time perhaps to share with the public and our viewers the question of the day that we are asking their thoughts and opinions on. So, are you able to, do you have the question of the day? Well, I think you've muted yourself.
Sorry about that.
That's
so
fine.
we want to ask our viewers, should all members of parliament publicly declare their tax exemption values on motor vehicle purchases? Should they be declared? And I might even go a step further as to say, on all purchases really, or I mean, you could expand the answer to include other things, but in this case, I think the situation being centered around the motor vehicle exemptions. And this is an exemption that is offered to some degree or another to public servants, not just members of parliament. So it would be interesting what you would have to say about that as well.
Well, don't be entirely surprised if nothing actually comes out of this, if this is just once more story in the newspapers that we discuss, and nothing ever further is reported on it, So at this point, we will just keep our eyes focused to see if anything further transpires. But as it stands, we have to take a break here on the program. When we return, we'll welcome our guest commentator this morning. You're watching Talking Point here on WESN, the Content Capital.
Welcome to the American University of Barbados School of Medicine. We offer 2 comprehensive MD programs, 5.5-year program for high school finishers, and 4-year program for college graduates.
The American University of Barbados has been accredited with the Barbados Accreditation Council, BAC, and has been accredited
by CAMHP.
as the medical school has affiliate hospitals at Baltimore and Chicago in the USA and the Caribbean islands.
Don't miss us in TNT in Tobago, Mount Irvin Bay Resort, August 12th and 13th. In Trinidad, Trailwinds Hotel San Fernando, August 14th and 15th. And K-Poc Hotel, Maraval, August 16th and 17th.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the right and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN. Now, Sean and I this morning were joined by the media ambassador of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Acting ASP, Ashraf Ali. He's with us in studio. Good morning, Acting ASP. Welcome back.
Good morning, and thanks for being here again.
It's a pleasure to have you with us, sir. And, well, I want to get straight into the conversation. It's a topic that we've actually delayed, given all the events that's transpired over the last couple of weeks. In relation to human trafficking, now, the United States, the State Department came out with a report over human trafficking in TNT. They mentioned those within government actually being a part of it. Now, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, he actually has to clarify what that meant, and the US State Department said, well, it's a general term that we use, but there are police officers involved as well. Now, I heard from the vice president of the Social and Welfare Association to the TTPS. He's indicated that they're doing all they can on their end to weed out corruption within the TTPS, and he's even indicated that he has confidence within the service to actually weed out corruption and those who may be involved in human trafficking. Now, to be specific, confidence is one thing. A police officer tells me he has confidence within the service is one thing. But exactly what is it that the service is doing to actually get rid of these bad apples and in fact prosecute them if the case may call for such?
Well, I'll say good morning to everyone again. Over the last years, the 5-6 years, you have realized that the police service has ramped up its approach in dealing with errant and rogue police officers. Many of them have been charged and put before the courts. Now, the public might say that is not enough because there are still a lot of corrupt officers, and I'm saying that the persons normally would use that word very loosely and say that all police officers are corrupt. Fair enough, it is their opinion, but at the end of the day, in order for us to go before the court, we need evidence to support those charges. Now, human trafficking, not in Trinidad and Tobago alone, across the world is big business. It is very high criminal activity, white-collar crime. A lot of syndicates and networking is done in this area. So, and one of the things that persons look for opportunities such as what is taking place in what took place in Venezuela. We had a mass influx of persons in Trinidad and Tobago. Persons come across for a better life, not understanding that they may be put into certain areas, and by large they may be brought across for work. They may be working in how we should say, in a sexual environment, selling their bodies for sex, which is work. But at the end of the day, it is illegal. So this is where the whole area becomes a lot of grayish areas in terms of how you're providing the relevant evidence and acquiring the evidence from those individuals. The evidence is a victim. The victim has to come forth and say that they were trafficked. They were told that they're coming to a location or leaving a country to come into our country for the purpose of work, and they have been put in certain environment against their will to do certain things. There's a lot of network and work that has to be good, that has been done in the background that our counter-trafficking unit, international transnational crime unit, and other agencies are working in the background. This information it is not for the people don't want to hear it anymore, but it is intelligence guarding in the background for these things to come out.
I was just about to ask you, does the TTPS really have to wait for somebody to come forward, or would proactive policing or intelligence gathering actually allow them to conduct operations, sting operations, or crackdowns on networks? Because oftentimes we hear, okay, we have to wait for somebody to come and report. That may be too late.
And so true. So it is not that is one angle of it. So we do, in fact, when we get information about these business places and these areas that have sexual activities, illegal sexual activities, we may do a little exercise, and we may, as you realize, we found a lot of persons in there, documentation, barrier languages and all of that, and when you look at the documentation, they came in, and then having interviewed those persons after the fact, then you realize how they end up into that position. Now, like I said, that person has to, remember, human trafficking, to prove it, somebody has to say that I was taken against my will, just like kidnapping. Kidnapping cannot happen if it wasn't taken against your will. Right? If you willingly came to Trinidad and Tobago on the context of a job, but it was manipulated for you to be doing something else, that is misrepresentation also, but it is not clearly straight across the board for easy to say we can charge that individual for human trafficking. There's a lot of in-depth work has to go down in the background to get the relevant evidence, right, and supporting evidence for human trafficking. Now, it will be a spin-off onto the next topic that we are talking about, that is current topic that is taking place right now, which is pornography, and specifically child pornography. So that we also have human trafficking of children for sexual, for sex and other aspects of it, and then you come into the child pornography, right? But on Trinidad and Tobago, we do in fact have the Children Act, Chapter 4601, and there are a lot of offences that is identifying specifically Section 41 and 42, and 41 is called exposing a child to pornography, and Section 42 is inciting and or facilitating. So is inciting or facilitating child pornography. In the first one, it's $50,000 fine and 5 years. In the second offense, which is the inciting, it's indictment on 20 years, no fine, straight 20 years, right? But these are some of the things that we have to look at, and it is airing the most recent one that we have, which is very alarming, and the police service has in fact launched a probe, right? This guy Allen, Senior Sub Guy Allen from Child Protection Unit is leading that investigation to determine, based on the information that came out from the media, what all the information again we have and what all the evidence we have, because it's social media. So you realize that post-pandemic and in the pre-pandemic, in that era, you realize that social media has now been playing a very critical part in our life. Everything is on social media right now. That is going to be a very serious challenge, because we don't understand the seriousness of social media and the wide reach of social media, right? So it is a big challenge for us right now in the police service. Our cyber and social media unit is working tirelessly in the background to get all these things, because that technical and legal issues where you have to go to different service providers like WhatsApp, Twitter, Google, and all these new platforms that come in, TikTok and Instagram, you know, to get in personal information or information on those platforms, to look at persons. Because, I mean, let's be real, you can go up on these platforms, sign up on these platforms and use false names, put up a picture and an image, and start your phishing, as we call it, phishing online, and see who catches on, right? So
Sean,
it's a lot.
Sean, I don't know if...
Well, ASP, I do need to ask, with regards to laws governing cybercrime, do we have robust enough laws that will allow proper prosecution of these sorts of criminal activities?
Well, I would say currently we have, but as we are very young in the cyber and social media crime environment in Trinidad and Tobago, not in the world, in Trinidad and Tobago, getting up to speed, it's going to be important. We may have, at some point in time, we may have to revisit the laws to see whether it is satisfactory or not, right? Because I'm just before I came on here, I was doing some research, and strange enough, there's something called sexting, right? And a lot of persons may not know, and it's falls directly into our laws, that this is throughout the world, and they have sexting into 6 categories. First, sexual suggestive photos and videos. Now, that's no offense under our act. Photos and videos wearing lingerie, if you share that with individuals. Nude photos and videos, sexually suggestive text messages, interacting and sharing that with other persons. Text messages, propositioning sex, if you use social media to proposition sex. And the other one is forwarding or showing other sex. And this is an important one, forwarding. We all like to forward, and not understanding that, notwithstanding that you did not do the initial videoing or the text, screenshots, you take out screenshots and you just keep on forwarding. You are now part of that entire aiding and abetting of the offense.
But I think those points that you just mentioned, you need to stress on that. because it might come to a shock to quite a few people viewing the program this morning.
Exactly. So let's use, let me use this one. Photos and videos of wearing lingerie. I mean, you have couples would share information about lingeries, but it has to be between the couples, right, or particular parties. So you and your girlfriend share, your girlfriend sends some lingerie for you, images of lingerie, and ask you how do you like it, or you are not supposed to take that and share it with your colleagues. That is where the offense starts to come, where that individual now had confidence or in private shared it with an individual who they had confidence in and thought that the person had, it was confidentiality among two persons. But the forwarding aspect where we talk about forwarding is where we get ourselves in trouble, because we will take this video now and say, hey, look at this chick sent for me, what type of thing I like which one palang. Hey, look at it. Look at this girl I have there, man. Watch that. Watch how she looking. And I starting to share. And now you share to you. So I send it to you. You send it to Sean. Sean sent it to his grouping. It becomes an offense because you forward it. I was initial. I broke the confidentiality of this whole thing. I committed an offense. I send it to you. You now start to share. Every person who starts to share committing the offense of forwarding.
Is it TTPS proactively monitoring instances like this on social media, or they're still waiting for people to come to report to them?
We are in fact monitoring, but it's a lot, because every single day we have persons coming up with different platforms to share, because I mean it's a business, right? So new platforms are coming up. I only heard some just a couple of days I heard some radio announcers talking about some new platform outside of Instagram and something new again, and they want to go on to see what it is, because you have different levels of sharing, because you realize Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter have a lot of legal challenges taking place throughout the world, because those business and famous individuals are challenging it in terms of confidentiality. So now there are a lot of things popping up now. So TikTok coming up, then we have a lot of other platforms coming forward that is going to make these type of offenses, people unaware that these are offenses. Now when you flip this whole thing in, where you throw in the aspect of children inside of it, it becomes child abuse, because you are really and truly is child abuse. Because at the end of the day, when that goes into the school environment, and a child sees that, hey, look, I just saw a picture, now it might be, and that's where we have a lot of conversation with these children. There are a lot of tips that you have to that we send out, and there's a lot of information that we have, parents have to be much more proactive from social media and the use of the phones and these as your home. You understand? You need to know where your child is on, because I'm not a child in his room, in her room, and talking certain type of languages and texting and sending certain type of things that you don't know about. And they say once you go out on the cloud, it's difficult to get it back in, right?
Well, Sean, we have about a minute left. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to just have clarified by the acting ASP.
Just wanted to ask, because there was an incident on Friday in Tobago, Crown Point, where the police had to de-escalate a situation with regards to evictions, similar to how we were talking about the incident in Grenada. People need to understand not to take out their frustration on the police, because it's not the police that are actually evicting. The police are just there to keep the peace. Is that a fair thing to say?
And it's true. It's unfortunate that we get the brunt of the blame, because it's easier to say the police is involved, because we are enforcing the law on either side, right? Because we are enforcing the law. It may not benefit the persons that the tenants, right? So they believe that the police is victims. The police does not evict anyone. The police enforces an eviction order granted by the courts. We are enforcing a court order, and we are there not to physically remove anyone. We are there to ensure that the peace is being adhered to, the requirements of the law is adhered to. Just like in the incident in Tobago, during the process of the eviction, the aggrieved parties, their lawyers would have been petitioning the court at that same point in time, and as the injunction came out, the police would have to ensure at that point in time now that the persons who they went there to evict, their rights are also their rights in terms of that, because a court order has now been
it's not infringed upon.
Issued, so the court order is no longer valid. So the tenants are adhered to. So we in the middle, we will tell the individuals, listen, a court order is XY, and you have to remove yourself from the person's premises.
Well, Acting ASP, thank you very much. Just stick around. We have phone calls after the 9 o'clock news on the hour here on WESN.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise St. Clair. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. NGC declares 35 cents per share for 2022. PM trains his guns at Union Head. Anisette says he will not be diverted. And internationally, dozens dead in Egypt church fire. Now for the details. Trinidad and Tobago NGL Limited continues to post a solid financial performance for 2022. The company recorded an after-tax profit of TT $117.5 million for the 6 months ended 30th June 2022. This represents a TT $33.9 million or 40.6% improvement over the TT $83.6 million profit after tax recorded for the comparable period in 2021. Earnings per share for the half year were 76 cents, 2021 54 cents, and represents a year-on-year increase of 40.7%. The board of TTNGL has declared an interim dividend of 35 cents per share for 2022. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has trained his guns at Union Head Michael Anisette, who accused him of not caring about women and children in the country. In a statement on his Facebook page, the Prime Minister questioned what he did for the union leader to make such an accusation. The PM said that incidentally, during a parliamentary inquiry which involved the port, a woman came before the committee and gave her aggrieved testimony in camera to the committee chaired by Franklin Khan. She was a recently dismissed employee of the union led by Anisette. He questioned why Anisette does not address his own issues first. Well, in immediate response, Anisette says he will continue along his course seeking justice for all. He said if the Prime Minister has time to respond to him, he should have time to deal with the business of the people.
I would not be diverted. The trade union movement would not be diverted from our goal and our intention, which is social justice. And with all the crime and all the institution that is falling down around us, if you could spend time on Michael and Anisette, well, you know something had to be wrong.
On to international news now. Dozens of people have died after a fire broke out at a church in Egypt, after many of them crushed during a desperate scramble to escape. Officials say the number of dead is at least 41, with dozens injured. Children are believed to be among the dead. An electrical fire broke out as 5,000 worshippers gathered for Mass at the Coptic Abu Sifin Church in Giza. The fire blocked an entrance, causing a stampede, they said. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise St. Clair. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Talking Point. Thank you very much to our head of news, Denise Sinclair, for news on the hour this morning. Now, the acting ASP is with us. Feel free to call in and join us on the conversation this morning. And just before we open up the phone lines, Sean, could you just remind our viewers of the question of the day today?
Should all members of Parliament publicly declare their tax exemptions values on motor vehicle purchases?
Can't stress enough.
Declare their tax exemption values on motor vehicle purchases.
Can't stress enough on all members of Parliament. I'm not talking about a government minister. I'm not talking about just a senator. I'm talking about the opposition. I'm talking about everybody involved. Should all of them declare, every single member of Parliament declare the values of the tax exemptions on vehicles? And should we also ask, should they also declare how many vehicles they've purchased?
There's supposed to be a limit, I believe. There's supposed to be a limit, one every 2 years, right?
That's exactly why they should declare it publicly. It's supposed to be one every 2 years. If you purchase a vehicle, you cannot purchase another one for 2 years, and you cannot sell that vehicle within 2 years, otherwise you have to pay back half the tax. Anyway, folks, the phone line's open. Call in and join us on Talking Point this morning. We'd like your thoughts and opinions. We'd love to hear from you. The other incident that transpired, now you were probably a very busy man this weekend, acting ASP, because of the shooting that occurred outside of the Residence nightclub in Woodbrook on Saturday. One man was deceased. He died at hospital. Two others were actually wounded. The deceased identified as Nikal Luthra of Launch Park, Shagonas. This transpired around 2:30 a.m. This is, should I really be acting surprised that of a shooting at a nightclub? Because it seems as though anywhere you go now in Trinidad, regardless of where you go, to the corner shop, to the pharmacy next door to pick up your prescription, whatever, you're not safe at all.
And that is a reality at this point in time. Because when you have...
And that says a lot coming from a police officer.
No. We need to be very clear and honest. The commissioner did in fact come out and said that the brazenness of the individuals, persons don't like to hear the truth. The commissioner came out and said the truth. He'll be chastised for saying the truth. But the brazenness of these individuals who feel it's easy, right, just to come out, and then it will be thrown at the police and say the police is not doing their job. We have been trying, we have been recovering firearms. Look at the type of firearms that we recovered over the weekend, right? High-powered weapons, AR-15s. When you look at the incident that took place recently, you realize the number of ammunition, how much rounds that was discharged, and different type of ammunition with discharge in these type of shootings. So it is in fact a reality that these persons are just they just don't care, right? Because there are other circumstances.
You mentioned the weapons that you all actually seized over the weekend. Across TNT, when drugs and weapons are seized, usually, at least the first thought is that they are, obtained as evidence if any individuals have to be prosecuted.
Yeah.
Those, obviously, that has to be destroyed eventually.
Yes, it has to be destroyed eventually, but the weapons are sent to our forensics for tracing. There's two types of tracing that is done I wouldn't give you the technical terms, but the layman terms that we check our international database with the drug enforcement agencies and the ATF to determine the origins of these weapons, because there's an interagency, international partnership with other, so we can track where these weapons are coming from. Then we have the forensics aspect of it, that we would get whatever forensic evidence from it. But at the same time, our legislation that we currently have, the only way that I can fingerprint you or take your photograph if you have been arrested. So if you're not arrested, your fingerprint and we have nothing to compare it with. So that is why we keep on. When we arrest these individuals, we keep them for a particular period of time, and we take fingerprints and things for comparisons.
Well, Acting ASP, just hold on that, because we do have a caller on the line with us from Shagonas. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
One point I didn't make on the acquisitions in Tobago. is the amount of compensation being offered is a red herring, because the law is very clear. If there is any dispute or disagreement as to the amount of compensation, it is referred to a high court judge for arbitration. So if the figure is low, that is all they have to do. As to your question about loans for politicians,
tax exemptions, yes.
Cars,
yes.
I think I explained this sometime before, is that politicians were never traveling officers for the simple reason that in the public service, to be a traveling officer, you have to need to use a vehicle in the performance of your duties, not in going to work, right? And in the performance, we went through this last week too. What is the duties of a parliamentarian? A parliamentarian's duty is to debate in the House. I'll be on a joint select committee. What do you need a car to do that for? A minister, again, is to oversight the ministry, not to do the actual work. What they have done is make themselves eligible for these enormous sums. And you talk about having a limit. For the public servant, there is a limit.
Yeah.
And he's the one who needs to use the vehicle. But there is none for the politician. Any questions, gentlemen? I think I will take you 2 minutes.
I think you've made, well, once again, Professor, you've made some good points there. But, you know, correct me if I'm wrong. As far as I'm aware, members of parliament, part of their conditions of their contract is that they're actually given a vehicle, a government vehicle, and this is the entire controversy.
Instead of giving us government something.
They're allowed a vehicle to use in their daily work.
Change the law to do that.
Sorry?
The only people who have prospered in Trinidad since independence is the politicians.
Yeah. And that's the entire controversy surrounding how all those vehicles are now parked at the first 2-3 floors at the car park near to Hyatt. That's the entire controversy, you know. So, but thank you very much, Professor.
You're welcome.
Have a good day. Just imagine that. If you take a drive now to that car park outside the Hyatt Regency Hotel at the Waterfront Complex, first 2 to 3 floors are just vehicles, motor vehicles gathering dust. They're actually gathering dust. They're not, the vehicles are not covered, they're covered in dust.
Yeah. Well, not just that, Keaton. I think the professor is pointing out, because ever so often the professor would point out this is what the law was or supposed to be. And you and I know on a practical level that's not what it is. What it is something very different. And we do have to ask now, to what extent? Because you don't hear much about these things when these types of changes are made, right? To what extent is the benefits being increased or expanded? And we might not even really truly be aware about what is going on, because from what I understand, depending, and maybe it is that the system is being gamed a little bit, public sector workers getting those sorts of allowances or exemptions for motor vehicles is more widespread than just traveling officers. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's limited to that way. Now, maybe that was done to compensate people because government couldn't give them the proper raises to their salaries that might have been either asked for or even deemed necessary by the government or management itself. However, it still begs the question, transparency. Is this really a transparent situation where we could be confident that no one is gaming the system? No one is finding the loopholes. No one is allowing the PH taxis to go. And then all of a sudden, when crime with PH taxis happens, we get lip service about having to regularize the industry. And you could make the same case for multiple other examples where things are allowed to be loose until somebody gets upset, and then we get lip service but no solution.
Sean, the allowance of a member of parliament is actually more than the average salary in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm pretty sure. The allowances that they receive, that is separate to their actual monthly remuneration for their services to the public. And yes, I specifically worded it that way. For their services to the public, their remuneration, the allowances separate to that exceed what people earn on a monthly basis here in TNT. That is pathetic, that is saddening, And boy, none of them could relate. They can't relate. Suits and ties, well and good. I wear suits and tie every day, but they can't relate. You know, not one bit at all. So, I
mean, it goes back to the, how to put it, the rumors or the beliefs, at least with regards to the THA. Now, is the PDP operating the THA like this? It doesn't seem so, but time will tell. You know, we can't say that way for sure right now. But I can tell you, that was the be-all and end-all with regards to ambition for a lot of young people in Tobago to get a government work. And I don't think that that's limited to just Tobago. If that is the be-all and end-all of the ambitions of a significant portion of the young people in our country, then no wonder we have not been able to have any sort of economic development beyond where we've reached. I think you could argue that the private sector, to some degree, is more or less stagnant for the last 10 to 20 years. Yes, the economy might have grown in terms of absolute size and whatnot, but look at the sectors of the economy that have prospered. We haven't really added any new services, new industries, new capabilities, really.
Sean, I'm going to ask you to pause on that, because we do have a caller, but you're right, because it's not only Tobago. When I was in university as well, everybody aimed for a government job. Imagine that, you know, because they could eat their food as well. That was the aim. As soon as I graduate, I want a $10,000 job. Caller on the line with us from Digger Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
Yes,
Morning.
Politicians, I don't understand them at all. They have no right to be getting this duty-free concession. If the government wants whoever in power to give them a percentage off of something of the sort.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Wavering that kind of money is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they look to buy the most expensive vehicles. They want you to look up to them as kings and lords and not as people who are working for you. So I don't understand that sort of logic. That's something needs to be adjusted and to come to terms with.
Certainly.
Because that is taking too much money out of the coffers of the government.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope people will come and understand all these sorts of things. The country cannot afford all this kind of thing again.
Yes.
We did that when we had money and so on. And there are too many people who are struggling. People are struggling. People really don't understand how people are struggling, you know. There are some people, when the day comes, they can't even enjoy a plate of food for their children and so on. And that is, to me, is an injustice to humanity in any part of the world.
Yes, it is.
So thank you for taking my call, and have a good day, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, sir. I just want to, I know that the acting ASP is with us. We were very sorry. It's just a topic that is consistently, it pops up now and again, because, I mean, this is the same Minister of Finance that has raised taxes on vehicles. I think, was it twice since he's been minister? You know, and it's amazing. It doesn't affect them. It doesn't affect them, but
it affects every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago when it comes to vehicle, because everybody wants to have a vehicle. So yes, it may not directly affect some persons, but generally, when everybody wants a new vehicle, and when you have the amount of taxes that you have to pay on these vehicles to bring down here, you are really burdened with a hefty additional cost, because sometimes when you may even check it, that the cost of bringing the vehicle down here, and after you don't pay the taxes, is almost twice the value of the vehicle. These are some of the things that we have to look at, all right? And we have the other aspect of it in our holistic point of view. The number of vehicles that we have on the roads, the roads cannot really accommodate that amount of vehicles.
Yes.
And then we have persons who have the ability, financial ability, to own more than one vehicle in their household. They may not have need for the vehicle, but just because they have finances to own it, they purchase multiple vehicles. And this is where we have a lot of problems with traffic and in this. Over the years, we're supposed to have some better mechanism of getting rid of outdated vehicles, or reclassifying those vehicles into some other method let's say, probably theoretically, we could throw it out and say, you want to have your vehicle as an antique, it's over 15 years, there's a particular requirement that you need to satisfy to have your vehicle classified as an antique, given a particular number plate, so it is classified as an antique. So you take it off the system, and your antique vehicle is not to be driven on the road on every single day and create an additional congestion on the roads. So yes,
isn't the requirement that after 3 years the vehicle has to be inspected?
Yes, it's supposed to have inspections of the vehicle. But
I think, I mean, between foreign used vehicles and brand new cars, and it's funny how no matter how expensive brand new cars, the price rises, we still have people being able to afford brand new cars. The congestion on the road, as the SP said, it has reached the point where I think it is a detriment to our economy, a detriment to our development. And this goes now back to public transport and our public transport system not getting the attention it deserves. And I wonder to what extent, because why do people need their own cars? Because the transport options out there, when we go back to the taxi system, whichever one it may be, hired cars, PH cars, whatever. I mean, PH, yes, is not an actual legal definition. But when the unreliability of the bus service, maxis, when the amount of stories about crime due to people going into a taxi, being led to some far-off location and being turned into a victim. There's too many of those stories. It might be 1 or 2, it might be 100. There's too many of them. And a lot of these things, the opportunity exists because we don't have a proper mass transit, public transit system. There's more than one option for it. There are different ways to massage the details to find the best system for us. But I think ultimately speaking, we need to do better on that, because one of the most enjoyable things for me when I went to Toronto one time and New York a couple of times was public transportation. It was reliable, it was on time, it was cheap, and I didn't have to worry about needing a car. Mm-hmm. And in TNT, I think most people, if you want a certain amount of independence, you need a car. Traveling only affords you so much.
And the thing about it is that we also have the aspect of in terms of the crime aspect of it, opportunities. Once you have number of vehicles on the road, so a group of persons going to affect 10 persons, 10 vehicles. Mm-hmm. 10 vehicles, because everybody wants the convenience of, so as soon as the fete finishes, or the party finishes, or the event finishes, they want to be able to leave on their own without the hassle, because, like I said, the public service transportation is not allowing that. So then you're creating the opportunities for criminals to know that, listen, we have a lot of cars coming on the road, so then we come back to the issue that a couple of weeks ago where we was discussing the amount of lasting motor vehicles. Mm-hmm. Each of these things hinges on each other, right? And crime, in the crime circle, we're talking about opportunities. So when we're talking about these opportunities, it's where we have, once you could remove opportunities, you could reduce the amount of crimes, certain type of crimes that could be committed, right? And pornography is one of them. We need to get rid of some of the opportunities, because you know that we as parents, we don't really take the time to speak to our children about the use of phones and the current technologies, because we ourselves don't know. Mm-hmm. So we have to educate ourselves about the phones, social media platforms. This is something that the older generation have to teach themselves to teach their children, because this technology that is going on right now, it's fast moving, and we are not, so that's why a lot of persons not even sure what their children are doing on the phone.
We have a call on the line with us from a final call for this morning from Takariko. Good morning, caller.
Hi, morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, as far as traffic is concerned, taking older vehicles off the road is not the solution. The officers should think harder than that. And let me tell you straight, yeah? My vehicle, yeah.
We can hear you, go ahead.
Yeah. Removing older vehicles off the road is not the solution to that. You have to think harder than that.
Uh-huh.
And let me tell you something. I have a vehicle since 1978, And they hardly have any motor car on the road could match with that. Every day I drive over with that, people begging me to buy that. You know why? The new vehicles are no good, so don't pick on older vehicles. There are other solutions regarding traffic. That is a total statement by the police officer. Sorry to say that.
Hold on. Caller, I would like you to stay on for a few minutes. The issue here, I never said to remove old vehicles. What I said is to reclassify. Reclassify your vehicle that you have from since 1998, and you said that
1978.
78. That is an immaculate
condition. Yes, I have one of the best vehicles in the world that you don't consider.
So then you now should be benefiting from a vehicle of that nature by having your vehicle reclassified as an antique. Is it? Would you not say it's an antique right now?
I say antique for what reason? It's an antique already.
Exactly.
Everybody is calling it antique.
So you
should. It's top class condition.
Exactly. So you should be benefiting from having.
What is the benefit?
Exactly. That is what we are saying. So there's something we could consider, because I'm not speaking about old vehicles. When I say old vehicle, I'm talking about old derelict vehicles.
Oh, derelict.
Derelict vehicles that is not.
I ain't going to go against derelict vehicles.
Yes.
They should be on the road in the first place.
Exactly. That is not roadworthy. There's a big difference here, not roadworthy.
You know who's the first man coming with that nonsense? Mariano Brown. That's when cars was selling. No, nobody ain't talking that again. If you take off old vehicles off the road now, what happens? Gas station shut down, you know.
But do you know that?
In the majority.
But under the Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Act, vehicles that are defective fittings, that are not roadworthy, they're not supposed to be on the road. So the law gives us the opportunity to have that vehicle removed on the road because it's considered to be a safety.
Yeah, because you're supposed to inspect your vehicle every 2 years or 3 years.
Exactly.
Well, callers, thank you very much. Have a good day. So, yeah, I think I understood where you were coming from when you said old vehicles, because I agree with you. These vehicles, I've seen vehicles on the road using masking tape.
Yes. So I would rephrase from using the word old vehicles, and I agree with the caller. We don't say old, because not all old things are not good, but we call them, what we say is not a roadworthy vehicle.
Yeah.
In accordance to the Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Act, because some of those vehicles are really not roadworthy and shouldn't be on the road because it poses a risk to other road users.
It certainly does. And by the way, caller, it's a Cressida, 1978. Wow, nice. Strong, sturdy vehicles. I mean, my father had one.
He should be benefiting from something to say that it is considered to be antique, and he should be given an opportunity to display his antique.
Exactly. I can't tell you the last time I saw a Cressida. Wow, can't tell you last time. But anyway, caller, thank you very much. Well, I think that basically wraps it up for this morning's program. Sean Michael Small, hang in there. It's good seeing you this morning on the program. Thank you for joining us via Zoom. I think you've muted it.
Just like to reiterate the point, we didn't cover it today, but the question with regards to fireworks, I think it's an important one, because it's important that we find out what the national consensus is. Because if it goes against what the majority of the population wants, I don't see how we could justify a business profiting when most of the citizens might not want that product in the hands of the public.
Well, I hear you, Sean, but just remember who's running that particular business. Just bear that in mind. So we could have
democracy. Democracy is supposed to be a thing.
We could have that conversation another day. But thank you very much, Acting SP. Thank you very much once more for joining us on the program.
It's nice to be here again. And Sean, take it right. Vitamin C, please. A lot of vitamin C. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Stamina and adrenaline. Anyway, Sean. Anyway, folks, listen, thank you very much. I'm Keaton Shaw. This has been Talking Points. Wishing you all the very best in your daily endeavors and a great weekend. Remember, as ironic as it may be, this is Sweet TNT. Today's a good day to have a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.